Let us talk about two-dimensional arrays now. So far we have spoken just about one-dimensional arrays. In real life, we're going to use a lot of things or we're going to do a lot of things with two-dimensional arrays. You have already seen two-dimensional arrays in the form of matrix in your maths in 9th and 10th. So the representation of matrix in two dimensions can be done by your array. Suppose I declare an integer array A and I specify m and n. M specifies the number of rows and n specifies the number of columns. So anything that moves across horizontally is your rows. So this is your rows, and vertically as we keep coming down from top to bottom, that represents your column. Now in this case, m represents the number of rows and n represents the number of columns. So if I say 5, m is equal to 5 and n is equal to 5, that means it's a two-dimensional matrix having 5 rows and 5 columns. So totally it can store 5 into 5, it can store 25 integer values. Now if I am saying a of 1 of 2, the first square bracket refers to the row number, the next refers to the column number. So first row is what? This is the zeroth row. Don't think this is the first row. This is the zeroth row. This is the first row. First row, second column. Zeroth column, first column, second column. So you have to go at the intersection of the row and column. So first row, second column is 46. Then 46 is the value of row 1 and column 2. Now let us see how we go about declaring a two-dimensional array. If we have to declare a two-dimensional array, first we have specified the data type. In our case it was int. Then the name for the array. First you specify the size of the row followed by the column size. The row size and columns must be constants or expressions that ultimately give an integer. You cannot have array a of 2.2 comma 3.3. That's not possible. Just as you cannot have half a person, 1/4 person, you have to have the number of rows and columns as a whole number. The rows size and column size should be enclosed in separate square brackets. Row in one bracket, column in the next bracket. Now let's take a look at how we can go about initializing the array of two dimensions. So if I'm initializing a two-dimensional array with 2 rows and 3 columns, this is how the 2D row and 3 columns will look. So this is 2 rows and here I am showing you 3 columns. So in the 0th row, 0th column is 1, 0th row first column is 2, 0th row second column is 3, first row 0th column is 4, first row first column is 5, first row second column is 6. So if you see here, since I have said 2 rows and 3 columns, I have had 2 rows like this and I have had 3 columns represented like this. Now just as in a 1D array, if we miss or do not wish to initialize every element, if we initialize just 1 or 2 numbers, the remaining are automatically initialized to 0. So take a look at this particular array. This is a preferred way of initializing rather than this way. The reason being, the first method, problem with the first method is you do not know what is the row and what is the column. So I personally prefer this method of initializing an array. So what I have done is I have said an array is going to have 2 rows and 3 columns. But what I have done is in the first row, I have not initialized the last column, and in the second row, I have not initialized second and last column. So I have left 2 columns not initialized, 1 column not initialized in the first row. So according to what I said, they should automatically be equal to 0. So if you see 0th row, 0th element 1, 0th row first column 2, 0th row second column is 0 because I have not given any value. First row 0th column 3. After that, first row first column and first row second column both are going to be 0 because I have failed to initialize it. So this concept remains the same whether you're doing it for one dimensional array or two dimensional array. Now let's continue a little more bit on this one dimensional array. In the sense, we're now going to take a look how we can read numbers into a two dimensional array using logic. Okay, how we can read and how we can print. So I'm not going to go into every detail, but I'm just going to try to show you how you can go about reading it. and also we will be demoing a program in the same time. So the first thing is, let me cover this so you don't get distracted with unnecessary stuff. Okay, now what I am doing here is I am entering an array, or I am trying to store data into an array which consists of two rows and three columns. Okay, so let us see how we go about it. So what I will do is I'll first create a box. Okay, this has got one row, this has got two rows. Now how many columns it has? 1, 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3. Zeroth column, first column, second column. Zeroth row, first row. So let us say I decide to enter some numbers. The outer loop always represents the rows. The inner loop represents the column. Only using the row and the column number I can go to that exact location. I is 0, j is 0. Okay. So 0 is less than 2, 0 is less than 3. So a of 0, 0. A of 0, 0 is this particular intersection. Let me enter the number 23. Then j becomes 1. 1 is less than 3. So I is still 0. 0 and 1, it refers to this number. Let us say it is 25. Then j is again increased, j becomes 2. 2 is still less than 3. Zeroth row, second element, let us say 3. I have entered this. Now j becomes 3. 3 is not less than 3. I go back here. I is from 0, I now becomes 1. So I am now coming to process this particular row. J is back to 0 because every time it comes here, it reinitializes it back to 0. First row, 0th column, because both are first row and j is 0. So it refers to this. So let us say 22 here. J is increased by 1. So first row, first column, let's say it's 11. J is increased by 1, j becomes 2. First row, second column, let's say this is 12. J becomes 3, 3 is not less than 3. I is increased from 1, it becomes 2. 2 is not less than 2, it comes out of the loop. Now, here you can see here, the code below is used to print the above 6 elements as 2 rows and 3 columns. So one thing you will have to observe, I'm using this loop to print the rows, this loop to go and print this 23, 25, 3 and so on. You need to understand the important point here. This cout or this line or instruction is associated with this for loop. This particular fellow is associated with this particular for loop because only one statement is joined with for loop. This statement is connected with this for loop. So after this for loop finishes execution, or the inner for loop finishes execution, it is going to execute this particular stuff. So let's go again and try to do it. I is 0, j is 0. So I am going to print 0, 0. I am printing 23. Then j is 1. So 0, 1 is 25. Then j becomes 2. 0, 2 is 3. Now j has become 3. 3 is less than 3, fails. Now the reason this is important, why I am doing this new line. End line stands for new line. After printing 3, my cursor should go here so that the next row comes on the next line. If I fail to do this end line, it will continue to print the next row next to this in this particular fashion. I want one row per line. That is why after the inner for loop, I am putting this particular end line. This is very, very important. If you don't understand, you're going to have a problem when you get into typing in the computer. Now I becomes 1. J is back to 0. 1, 0 is 22. Then j becomes 1. 1, 1 is 11. 1, 2 is 12. J is 3, 3 is less than 3, fails. Again, I'm going to hit the cursor and come on this particular line. So I have ended up printing 2 rows and 2 columns. First reading it and then printing it through this particular 2 loops. Since I have 2 dimensions, I need 2 loops. If I have 3 dimensions, I need 3 loops because you have row, column and the third dimension. If it is only 1 dimension, I need 1 loop because I can just go across the row. If I have row and column, then I need 1 loop to cover the row, 1 loop to get into the individual column. Now let's take a look at a simple program which does the reading and writing of, just does the reading of elements into a two-dimensional array as well as does the printing. This way your concept is going to be better. Now what I'm doing here is I'm going to read a two-dimensional array into a into the computer. So first what I am doing is I have declared it can at the most have 5 rows, 5 columns. I is the index to go into the row, j is the index to go into the column, m is for the maximum number of rows, n is for the maximum number of columns. So I am asking the user to enter the order. Let us say the user wants a 2 into 2 matrix. So he is going to have 2 rows and 2 columns. Okay, so this is 0 1 column, then this is going to be 0th row, first row. Now I am asking, in this case m is equal to 2, n is also equal to 2, because I am saying it's a square matrix of 2 rows and 2 columns. Now what I am going to do here is, using the loop, I am going to enter the elements. I have already shown you how this loop works, so I'm not going to bother my time on trying to show you that. Let us say I enter 23, 26, 91 and 99 here using this particular loop, because initially when both are 0, 23 gets stored. 0th row, first column, this one. Then I increases, first row, 0th column, first row, first column. Now using the same logic, we are simply going to print out this particular number. So here if you see, what am I doing here is, I am starting from the 0th row with using the value of I, and I'm going ahead and trying to print. So let us try to see what we are trying to do here. Array elements are 0th row and j is also 0. So it's going to print 23. Okay, it's going to print 23. I is increased by 1, so I come to this column. The row remains the same, so I'm going to print 26. J increases by 1, it becomes 2. 2 is not less than 2, I go back here. Now I comes to the next row. So first row 0th column, j is 0, is 91. J increases by 1, it becomes 99. After I have printed all of that, I am again going to the end of the line. Even after 26, this particular statement got executed, so that after 26 it went to the next line. As long as the for loop j with the value j is true, only this statement is executed. The minute this for loop fails, I am going to hit this particular thing. So this should give you an idea about how we go about reading values into a two-dimensional array as well as printing. You must type this code without copying it, or look into it but type it, and then try to understand how the element reading happens. Try to give different number of rows, different number of columns, and see whether you are able to visualize the correct entry of data into that particular array.